Today, you are going to be bombarded with somewhere between 3,000 and like 10,000 commercial messages.
Which is just a massive number.
Right. Just let that sink in for a second. 10,000 times before you go to sleep tonight. Someone, somewhere, is trying to sell you something or, convince you of some narrative. They just want to capture a tiny fraction of a second of your time.
Yeah, and the crazy part is, while they're doing all that, your actual attention span, the amount of time you're actually willing to focus before you just swept away, has shrunk down to less than 8 seconds.
It's wild. And that tension right there, that is the central mission of our deep dives today. We are looking at an industry that is, frankly, facing a complete foundational crisis.
Absolutely, because the advertising world, for the most part, has just been coasting on these playbooks and segmentation strategies that were established, 60 years ago?
Yeah, like the Mad Men era. We're talking about principles that were literally devised for a mass market world long before the internet, way before social media fragmented everything, and definitely before artificial intelligence.
Right, but the entire architecture of how they do this is about to undergo a massive shift.
A total quantum leap. And we've got an incredibly illuminating set of sources guiding us through this today. We're pulling insights from a really detailed conversation between the Chief Marketing and Communications Officer at Mastercard and the Chief Technology Officer at WPP.
And WPP, just for context, is one of the largest marketing and communications organizations on the planet. They see everything.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this because if I'm tracking the implications of their conversation correctly, the fundamental mechanics of how we are sold things are basically being dismantled and rebuilt from scratch.
Yeah, and to really grasp the scale of that rebuild, you have to sort of look at where marketing currently sits inside the broader corporate ecosystem. I mean, arguably, marketing is the last major enterprise business function to undergo a proper, digital modernization.
Oh, that's true. I hadn't thought about that.
Right. Think about the supply chain, or finance, or human resources. Those departments went through these massive systemic digital overhauls decades ago.
Yeah.
But marketing has sort of stayed this highly fragmented, intensely manual, and just notoriously difficult to manage process.
Because you've got, different subcontractors, separate creative agencies, media buyers.
Exactly, and they're all operating in these isolated silos. But the sheer volume of content a brand needs to reach you, the consumer, across every single digital platform today, it means the demands of the future are suddenly putting crushing pressure on those old legacy systems.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a brand trying to navigate all that media fragmentation, you have to be on TikTok and Instagram and streaming TV, plus digital billboards, audio platforms, all at the same time.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
And historically, the immediate instinct to solve that complexity has always been just this massive land grab for personal data.
Right.
The assumption was, well, if we know everything about your identity, your age, your income, your browsing history, then we can target you perfectly.
Yep, that was the gold rush.
But looking at the insights from our sources, it looks like that instinct might actually be completely wrong.
Yeah, this points to what is arguably the biggest fallacy in data marketing over the last decade. The whole industry essentially worshipped at the altar of personal identity data.
Thinking it was the Holy Grail.
Right. The underlying belief was that knowing exactly who a consumer is automatically means you know how to market to them. But the reality is way more complex. I mean, personal data just does not equal consumer intent. It's not the predictive golden ticket everyone thought it was.
So wait, if knowing my specific demographic profile isn't the key to predicting what I'm actually going to buy, what is? What actually drives the purchase?
Well, the primary driver is actually context. Non-personal situational data is vastly more predictive of immediate human behavior than some static identity profile.
Okay, give me an example.
Think about the variables right now. What is the weather like where you're standing? Is it raining? Is it a Tuesday morning or a Friday night? Are you hanging out outside a stadium before a big game? Or are you sprinting through a subway station during a massive commute?
Ah, I see.
Yeah, that immediate, localized environmental context dictates what you need far more powerfully than knowing you fall into, say, a specific middle-class tax bracket.
It's like the difference between a sledgehammer and a scalpel. Like, personal data is knowing your friend's favorite color is blue, but contextual data is knowing that they are currently standing outside in the pouring rain. Which piece of information is actually going to help you sell them an umbrella?
Exactly. The favorite color doesn't matter when you're getting soaked. And what's fascinating here is when you introduce artificial intelligence into that framework, the capabilities scale exponentially.
How so?
Well, the true magic of AI in a business setting doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It actually materializes when you combine that unique, real-time contextual data you just mentioned with proprietary domain knowledge.
Right, so a brand isn't just using ChatGPT out of the box.
Exactly. No sophisticated brand is relying on a generic, off-the-shelf AI model for this. They are taking their specific historical sales data, their live inventory levels across all their different warehouses, and they're marrying that with the real-time context of you, the consumer. That is the threshold where marketing finally shifts from just broadcasting generic noise to providing a highly specific solution precisely at the moment you actually need it.
Okay, but that level of specificity introduces a pretty severe bottleneck, doesn't it? I mean, if the secret is adapting to hundreds of different micro contexts, rain, snow, morning, night, at the gym, whatever, how does a brand actually figure out what message works in all those specific scenarios?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because the traditional method for testing an ad campaign involves like recruiting focus groups, getting 12 people in a room, showing them physical storyboards and interviewing them. It is incredibly labor intensive.
Oh, it's so labor-intensive. And it routinely takes months to execute and costs millions of dollars. Honestly, by the time a brand synthesizes the feedback from a traditional focus group, the cultural moment they were trying to capture is probably already over.
Right, the trend is dead.
Exactly. And this is the exact friction point where the technology detailed in our sources shifts from just being this theoretical concept to a highly practical, real-world mechanism. They detail a system called the WPP Open Platform, which is basically an AI-driven marketing operating system.
Right, and they use this really cool demonstration in the sources. They created this fictitious perfume and personal care brand called Zia to show how it works.
Yes, the Zia demo is where the underlying mechanics become really clear because they aren't simply typing, basic prompts into a generic image generator. They're establishing what they call a brand brain.
A brand brain. Okay, explain how that actually works.
Well, the brand brain basically operates by ingesting the fundamental DNA of the company. When we say they feed the AI the brand guidelines, we mean they were literally translating aesthetic and tonal rules into vector mathematics.
Wow.
Yeah. The system parses the exact hex codes of the brand's approved colors. It analyzes the typography, the specific lighting ratios of all their past photography, even the syntax and vocabulary of their most successful ad copy. It maps the whole brand out in a multi-dimensional space, so the AI inherently understands the strict aesthetic rules it has to play by.
Okay, so once that brand brain is locked in, the platform allows the marketer to create this synthetic persona. Like they can program a digital stand-in for, say, an eco-conscious Gen Z consumer.
Exactly.
So a human marketer sitting at their laptop can take a rough concept, maybe for a new sustainable hand wash, feed it into the platform, and literally ask the synthetic Gen Z persona for feedback on the packaging or the messaging. It's an instant, ultra-low-cost conversation with a synthetic focus group.
And it happens in seconds. The mechanism behind that synthetic persona relies on cross-referencing massive aggregated data sets. The system isn't just making a wild guess. It's pulling from millions of real-world purchasing receipts, historical search queries, social media metrics.
So it's grounded in reality.
Very much so. It builds a statistical model of what that specific demographic actually values historically. So if the synthetic persona rejects a plastic bottle concept, the marketer can immediately ask, well, what sustainable alternative would index higher? And the AI just generates alternatives based on real prevailing trends within that group.
Okay, I have to push back on this a little bit, though. Can we really trust a machine to mimic human intuition? I mean, humans are notoriously irrational. We tell surveys that we care deeply about sustainability, but then, we grab the cheapo plastic wrap product when we're actually standing in the aisle. Does an AI really know how a Gen Z consumer feels despite those contradictions?
That is the exact necessary skepticism anyone should apply here. But the counter-argument from the tech industry is that we need to reframe what the AI is actually doing. It's not trying to replicate the emotional unpredictability of one single irrational human being. The objective here is superhuman synthesis.
Superhuman synthesis. What does that mean in practice?
Well, think about a traditional focus group. You're entirely reliant on the limited intuition of just 12 random people in a room, right? Plus the subjective bias of the researcher interpreting their answers. Honestly, just one really loud, dominant personality in that physical room can entirely skew the feedback.
Oh, totally. The loud L person takes over.
Exactly. But the synthetic focus group removes that localized bias because its baseline is aggregated reality. It is trained on a 1,000-page marketing best practice playbook and vast amounts of actual point-of-sale data. That's knowledge far beyond what any single human participant holds in their mind. It removes a layer of observational bias and shrinks a months-long validation phase down to minutes.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, though. Let's assume the synthetic focus group gives the green light. The AI validates that this eco-conscious persona loves the sustainable messaging. The brand still has to actually make the ads, right, for all those fragmented media channels we talked about.
Right, the execution phase.
Yeah. They need a vertical video for mobile, a widescreen version for streaming, a digital billboard. They need variations for when it's raining, when it's sunny, for the morning commute, for the evening. This is where the scale of production shifts from, like, manual human labor to just an absolute algorithmic explosion.
It becomes a vast matrix. Once the marketer puts in that approved concept, the AI instantly generates a massive grid of content. In the demonstration from the sources, the platform literally generated 13,000 distinct variations of a single ad concept in seconds.
13,000. The demonstrator literally had to scroll to page 1,300 just to show the end of the list. And it's not just cropping a master image into different sizes, it's generating entirely distinct headlines like, elevate your hand care ritual for the morning, or sustainable symphony for the senses for the evening.
Right, it's tailoring the copy, the call to action, the lighting, all based on those micro-contexts.
But wait, there is a really crucial technical detail here about how those images are generated, right? Because they aren't actually 100% AI generated.
No, they're not, and that's a vital distinction. Because in high-end commercial marketing, the quality control requirements are incredibly strict. So they use a highly specific hybrid approach.
Why is a pure generative approach not good enough for a major brand?
Because if you ask a pure generative AI model to draw a perfume bottle 13,000 times, the neural network is going to give you 13,000 slightly different interpretations of that bottle.
Right, the logo gets weird.
Exactly. The typography warps, the cap proportions get weird. The way the glass refracts light will be physically impossible. And a brand cannot have that. The product shot has to be picture perfect. So to fix this, the platform uses a mathematically perfect, fixed 3D rendered file of the actual physical product as the anchor.
Okay, so the bottle itself is a perfect 3D render, and they just drop that unchangeable asset into the generative engine, and the AI just builds the world around it.
You got it. The generative AI calculates the dynamic lighting, it plots the shadows falling across the glass based on the simulated time of day, and it renders the backgrounds, whether that's a misty rainforest or a marble bathroom counter. The environment adapts endlessly, but the product stays pristine.
Okay, that solves the quality issue. But honestly, it introduces a massive curation problem. Even with perfect product shots, a human marketer cannot sit there and review 13,000 variations. If you're staring at a matrix that big, you're just paralyzed. You can't just dump all 13,000 onto the internet and hope one works.
No, you can't. And that was the operational trap a lot of early adopters fell into. They treated AI like an infinite content fountain, but without a filter, they just drowned their media buyers in unusable junk. So to solve this, the WPP system uses a predictive filter they call the performance brain.
The performance brain, how does that calculate if an ad will work before it's even published?
It basically deconstructs the generated ad into its atomic components and evaluates them mathematically. Before a human ever sees those 13,000 options, the performance brain checks the visual density like, is this background too cluttered for a tiny phone screen? It checks the contrast ratio of the button to make sure you can actually read it.
Oh, wow.
It even parses the semantic weight of the headline, checking if a phrase like sustainable symphony actually historically leads to brand lift or direct sales for that specific demographic in the evening. It runs thousands of probabilistic models and assigns a predictive score to every single variant.
It's like having a crystal ball at a casino. If the performance brain says this specific image and headline combo only has a 36% chance of success, you just don't run it. In the old days, a company would run that mathematically doomed ad, waste hundreds of thousands of dollars, just to get the analytics back proving it failed. Now they know before spending a dime.
Exactly. It fundamentally re-architects how a brand spends its money. You only put media dollars behind the assets that have the highest mathematical probability of working.
Which brings us to the inevitable question, and it's a big one. If the AI internalizes the brand DNA, and a synthetic focus group validates the strategy, and a hybrid engine makes 13,000 variations, and then the performance brain picks the winner, what do the human marketers actually do? Does this just automate the entire creative industry out of existence?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we really have to establish a clear taxonomy of creativity. There is a profound difference between pure artistic self-expression and commercial creativity. Pure artistic creativity is about self-actualization, right? A painter putting their feelings on a canvas, regardless of what the audience thinks. But commercial creativity has a totally different mandate. It is not art for art's sake. Its sole objective is to drive measurable business results and consistency.
And brands absolutely require strict consistency, which machines are just inherently better at than we are.
Exactly. Algorithms are flawless at executing complex aesthetic rules across tens of thousands of iterations.
So the human role has to shift. I really love the reference Stefan Pretorius makes in the sources, bringing up the movie WALL-E.
Yes, the Wall-E dilemma. It perfectly captures our societal anxiety about AI. We have this fear that if machines do all the content creation, humans are just going to end up as these passive, obsolete passengers, floating around on hover chairs while the algorithms run the universe.
Right. Nobody wants that future.
No, and the technologists building this argue that we have a choice. We have agency. The goal isn't to build black boxes that replace us. The goal is to build software that makes humans more intelligent. AI isn't here to destroy jobs. It's here to shift the tasks.
Which makes sense. I mean, humans shouldn't be treated like assembly line workers anyway. A human designer shouldn't have to sit in Photoshop all day, manually resizing one master image into 10,000 different aspect ratios. That's menial, soul-crushing work.
Exactly. Human cognitive capacity is wasted on that. AI automates the mundane factory-level execution. And by removing that friction, it pushes humans to solve higher-order problems.
Right, like refining the actual messaging or designing the overarching strategy. The human becomes the prompt architect. You're the one asking, why does this product even exist? What narrative are we trying to inject into the culture? The machine handles the thousands of micro-executions, but the human holds the macro intent.
The human is the strategic director. It absolutely requires learning new tools, but it liberates us to do actual complex strategic thinking.
The sources actually end with a really blunt piece of advice for any company facing this tech today.
Yeah, the ultimate advice is basically stop pontificating. Don't sit in boardrooms having endless philosophical debates about the future of AI. You have to start doing it practically right now.
Just get your hands dirty.
Exactly. And crucially, it cannot be siloed off into some isolated AI department in the basement. It has to be adopted across the entire organization, driven from the CEO down. If executive leadership isn't pushing this across every workflow, they're going to be outmaneuvered by competitors who are.
So what does this all mean for you, listening right now?
Well, think back to those 10,000 commercial messages you're going to see today. The next time you're scrolling and an ad pops up that feels oddly perfectly timed, like maybe it's for a hot coffee delivery, exactly when you're shivering at a bus stop in the rain, you'll know what's happening behind the screen.
You'll know there's a synthetic focus group and a performance brain rendering that exact image just for you in real time. Exactly. Which leaves us with one final, deeply provocative thought to mull over. If AI becomes so perfectly predictive that an ad gives you exactly what you need at the exact moment your context demands it, at what point does it stop being an advertisement and start becoming a highly intuitive personal assistant? And honestly, are we really ready for the lines between marketing and personal help to completely disappear?